And this is what we've been asking everyone. Even if, let's say that the Republicans lose both seats and that it's 50-50 with Vice President-elect. God, it takes a long time to get that out. I'm just going to say with Vice President Harris, let's say that she's breaking the tie. Would they really still do some of those things that they were talking about, whether it's stacking the court or repealing I guess they'd probably repeal the tax cuts, wouldn't they?
Part of them, I think they would. I mean, it makes, let's just start with there. I mean, I think it makes a difference, a big difference, who controls the Senate. I know there's a lot of banks which are sort of hesitating on their forecast for next year a little bit, at least their policy forecast based on what's going to happen. So it matters. It matters. Certainly, I think it matters on taxes, whether we have just a continuation and perhaps extension at some point of the Trump tax cuts, or we repeal the individual stuff, perhaps. The corporate tax rate goes up to maybe 25% or so. I mean, I think that's significant. It's the difference between getting, I think, another stimulus package with checks, with aid to state and local government, and then down the line, a $1 trillion infrastructure plan. So I think if Democrats take those seats, you're talking about higher taxes and certainly, I think, considerably more spending.
So, Don, this is something that we haven't really talked much about, and I think it's relevant and appropriate. You talk about the big question: if the Dems lose in Georgia, or if they were to win one but not the other, whether I'm still calling President-elect Biden Vice President Biden, whether President-elect Biden would then be in a position to wheel and deal with Republicans to get some of his stuff passed. But maybe he'd extend the tax cuts or do some things that Republicans want to get infrastructure or something like that. That's something we haven't talked about. That might be positive for the markets.
Yeah, and I think a divided government scenario is positive for the markets. And as I said, there's a big question as to whether if Democrats don't take control of the Senate, Biden is ready to cut deals. I think he is. I think he's less ideological than Barack Obama and is prepared to make those deals. Interestingly, Mitch McConnell has opened the door to doing more next year on the COVID front, which I wouldn't have expected. I would have expected after a $900 billion package for them to be done. But he's left room open to do something on state and local relief in exchange for liability protections. I think that's a really natural time for Biden to talk about his infrastructure plan. And then I think when you start trying to convince Republicans to do some of the things that Democrats want to do, I think the most obvious thing you move towards is an extension of the individual tax cuts, which expire after 2025, or in the near term, there are three major business provisions set to expire, which is full expensing for equipment investment, the deductibility of research and development expenses, as well as a much stricter interest limitation is about to kick in 2022. So I think all of those things are areas that would make a lot of sense to compromise on, but we have to see whether Biden is prepared to do so.
Jimmy, do you know what Don just said? He said gridlock could help end gridlock. That's really what he just said.
Gridlock is good. Gridlock's good. Gridlock
could cause compromise.
Yeah, well, it's going to be right. There'll be the gridlock will be the compromise. What will also lead to compromise, as Don said, is that we have an action forcing mechanism here, which is the expiration of some of those tax cuts, which Republicans would like to extend. And of course, President Biden is going to want to do stuff, infrastructure. So yes, you see how a compromise happens. May not be what Democrats imagined in October, but it's not insignificant.
I don't want to know what. I mean, some of the stuff that was being imagined in October scares me a lot. But
I know it does.
That's taken off the table at this point, even with Manchin. Do you believe Manchin's comments, Jimmy? If Schumer really whipped him, would he get in line with some of these more radical things?
Well, listen, I mean, a Biden administration with this sort of narrow control are going to do things. What they do will be limited, I still think, by Manchin and the Arizona senators. So we're not going to get the Democratic fantasy dream package, but I think you're still going to get some tax increases. You're going to get more spending on sort of kinds of spending.
Okay.
That said, I still think probably the most significant economic event for next year just happened, and that's at $900 billion. That's a lot.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.